welcome. We've got Dan Corkill here. He is one of the co-founders of Follow Up Boss. I know you didn't even know there were two, right? But yes, there are two. Uh, Dan, how are you, buddy?
Hey Tristan, great to be here. I'm good. I'm doing well.
How's everything been going lately at Follow Up Boss with you?
Yeah, very busy. This year after joining Zillow has been a busy time, I would say. A lot of new team members. We're working with a lot of, team members also with Zillow. So yeah, just a lot of like coordination and things going on. But yeah, all really positive. We've had a lot of like staffing up in support at FUB. Actually, just yesterday, we changed some about how the engineering org is sort of structured, and pretty much going to mean it's going to be basically like two times the amount of engineers working on FUB next year. So obviously that means like we can deliver features faster and, a lot of things we've always wanted to do, like,
That's
um,
cool.
yeah, extra design resources, product resources. So yeah, it's cool. We're making use of, some of the big company, sort of benefits. Yeah.
I like that. All right, so take me back, man, because I love talking to you about when you first started because I want to understand the vision because we can all relate to this as business owners, right? You started at the beginning with a vision and then you grew it through. I want to understand when you first started this, what was the idea that you had with your buddy? How did it come out? Like, hey, let's start this thing and help out real estate agents. What? Tell me about this.
Yeah, it's great timing. We got started in 2011, and I would say I'd always been a little bit of like, interested in like how software could solve problems for people. And so we had this idea of like, let's build a small business CRM that can sort of like help people automate some things, like, do a bit more in their business than at the time. I feel like there was either really simple CRMs that just didn't do much for you, or there was
Okay.
like Salesforce, which is just like a monster. There were also some other things like Infusionsoft, which kind of like automated a lot for like online marketers, but just definitely was not simple enough at the time for like, a small business owner, right? So like a real
It was.
estate team leader or anything like that. Um, yeah, so that was our initial like idea. It kind of like failed in some respect because we didn't have any customers and we didn't really know who to serve, And so we realized like we actually need to go deep and understand a particular industry or a niche. And, we kind of stumbled across real estate a little bit and ended up talking to a lot of real estate people, particularly in the
Wow.
US.
How did that happen?
So I did a course which sort of taught some of this, like, there's a sort of a process called idea extraction. And basically the concept is like, instead of coming up with the idea yourself, like, oh, like I'm gonna come up with this amazing software and then go out and sell it to people, it's
Yeah.
kind of the reverse. It's like I'm gonna go out and talk to people and I'm gonna find out what their like most painful problems are, and then I'm gonna
Okay.
see if software could maybe solve those, right? And so it's sort of
Um,
doing a lot of the research first, and then sort of real estate has a few like good components, I think, for like software companies. Like there's lots of realtors. They're all very like growth minded and growth orientated. It's also very easy to reach them, and they already buy a lot of software. So from a just software entrepreneur perspective, like these are a lot of like
yeah.
positive things you want in an industry. Um,
Interesting.
yeah. So I started talking to real estate people, and some of it, honestly, Tristan, was just from Facebook groups. Like I think one of the original ones was like, "What should I spend my money on for real estate?" or something like that.
Dude,
You
I
remember that one?
remember. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
That was Chris Smith, right? I
I
think that
think
was
so. Yeah, I
or-
think Jimmy and Chris had that group. Um, and I was just in there observing. Like I would talk to some of those people in the group, and then other places as well. Like there were sort of some online forums and things. Anyway, got talking to a few people, and again, just trying to understand. Like, just tell me what the most painful thing is in your business. Oh, and they would list some things. You're like, but what about this? What about this? And one day, this guy actually emailed me back. His name was Marty, and he's sort of like, I'm buying all these leads. I believe it was from Zillow. And he's sort of like, I don't have a good way to track them. I don't really know like what's happening with
Yep.
them, and my agent's following up. And that was sort of like a little bit of a light bulb moment where we're like, okay, like well, we had this sort of like idea of a CRM and even this basic part of it built. What if
Mm-hmm.
we can just apply it to this problem in real estate of like people are starting to buy a lot of online leads, and this team model is also starting to take off. Again, this is back in
Yeah.
2011, right? And
Yep.
so everyone was still mostly using things like top producer and so on. And again, I would go pretty deep. I'm like, so you're paying for a top producer? And they would be like, yes. And I'm like, okay, so but when did you last use it? And like almost everyone would like just laugh at me because they just knew they weren't actively using it.
Mm.
And that was where I just realized like a lot of things had to be automated for them or they wouldn't do
Yeah,
it. And then yeah, we just needed to integrate with their lead sources. So that was, uh, that was the
mm.
initial like aha moment and sort of idea. And like again, just sort of also realizing like, hey, we don't want to be in the lead gen game ourselves. We want to just be this system that can help tie it all together.
Dude, I remember when, I don't know when you guys came out exactly, I don't remember, but I remember Michael LaRock telling me about it in 2011. And then I was like, what is this? So I jumped in and got it. I like go, dude, Mike, this is really good. Right. Even though I didn't stay with you guys for a super long time. And I left and I came back through Curator. Right. But my first account was because of Michael LaRock. And then I remember you and I sitting down and you saying, Tristan, our automation was me and my co-founder emailing and really pretending it was automated. So tell me that because that's like our struggle sometimes as real estate agents when we're starting off. We're like piecing things together. So how did automation work at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, there was no APIs back then, and the first thing was like once we sort of found this problem was like I was just thinking like, why would anyone send their leads to me? Like, why would they trust me? And so like that was one of the things we just wanted to test first is like, are people comfortable just sending us our leads or their leads, sorry, and then we will put them in the system. And so yeah, because we didn't have automation, me and my co-founder were just there typing them into the system. Um, Tyler was actually one of the first, Tyler Morton was one of the first customers that we're actually testing this with. And this
That's
was only
awesome.
for about 3 days. This is not like over months. We were just sitting there typing them in. My co-founder, technical genius, he just automated it after that. Um, and the funny thing was Tyler called me up at one point. He's just like, I forwarded in like 100 leads and I think I overloaded the system. And I'm just there typing them in, going, yeah, just give it a second to catch up type thing. So it was funny. I told him many years later that like I was just typing them in, but again, like this is the kind of scrappy thing you can do just to test it. And then once you see like, okay, clearly this is working, now let's move on to like automating and building things. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to now fast forward to where you guys are now. If you were going to start all over and uh, build a new CRM, right? Obviously, you're not, right? Don't worry, Zillow. He's okay. He's safe. If you're going to start all over, buddy, where would you start? Because you've got AI, you've got now a whole bunch of CRMs in this real estate world. They're all practically doing the same thing. You guys have been able to stand out, not just because your product is easy to use, just like you said, and it connects to everything, but you guys have some probably the best culture out of all software companies in the industry. Where would you start and how would you do it for a brand new CRM company? And let me take some notes because I might create one. I'm joking. Just go ahead.
Yeah, cut me in on the royalties there. Yeah, no, I think you just have to start with the customer problem. So it's like, again, I think sort of the wrong way to look at it is like being like, oh, I want to be like FUB but better or whatever CRM but better. I think the deeper you understand the customer pain points, and if you can like we isolated a very clear pain point of like aggregating leads, and that was our like just because we did that, and we did it automatically. That's why we got a lot of those early users, like you mentioned Michael before, and other people that are again starting to pay all this money for online leads. They really like sometimes there's this saying, right? Like this is not like a this is like a painkiller, right? Like you got this massive problem. This is a painkiller. It's not just like a nice to have like supplement or something. Um, and so yeah, I think you just try and find a really specific problem. I think AI is super interesting, like how that could maybe help solve that problem. But yeah, honestly, I think it will be tricky for companies to sort of like startups to compete a little bit with like things that FUB and other established CRMs do. Because I do think there's a lot that a real estate team needs, So it's like you do need to integrate with all the lead providers. You need to have a way to integrate with their website. You need all this calling, texting, emailing functionality. So I just feel like you need lead routing. Like I feel like all these things like stack up and we built those over, many years. So, I think you would have to try and find a piece of that. But I think it's also, again, really hard because you need all these different pieces and it's hard to sort of say like, oh, well, we don't have lead routing or we don't have texting. Like all these things over time have just become table stakes, things that teams need to sort of solve their problems. But again, maybe there's some underserved, segment, or you could start with a smaller problem, So yeah, interesting thing. It took us a long time. It took us from 2011 till now to build what we have. Sometimes people are asking like, oh, like when did you finish building? And it's like, as you know, it's
We're
sort of
not.
like this continuous process. So
Yeah, we're not finished.
yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. You say start with the pain point. I don't know that it would be any different at any other time either. It's always the pain point. And if we're applying this to real estate, as we learned from you, it's the same thing. We go to the client we're trying to serve, right? The audience, the community, the city, the demographics. Like, what is their pain point? And then we reverse it into, okay, got it. I understand. Yes, I can serve that. And I can create marketing pieces and solutions for that. So I really like that, Dan. Now, if you're looking at what's a big pain point right now that you guys are trying to solve for the real estate agent that isn't quite solved, what would that be?
Yeah, the original pain point, and why I mean why it's called follow-up boss is because like I kept hearing that people were just saying like I know I'd make more money if I follow up more. And I think this just applies to like almost any sales organization, even outside of real estate, right? Like people just inherently know, even if they're doing a good job or a great job, they know they could do more and that they would actually make more money if they did more, took more action, did more follow-up. Um, and so I think in some ways we're just solving the continuation of that problem. Like, how do we really just help people do more follow-up, make that follow-up more meaningful and like relevant? Because I know that's a challenge for real estate agents sometimes. Is like, I know I need to follow up, but like, how do I add value to the interaction versus just, be like, hey, I'm checking in or whatever. Um,
Mm.
and then I think the other thing, like for because obviously we have a lot of the top teams in the country and industry on FUB, it's like, how do we help these teams scale? And I think something that we did a lot of was like, having an open API and making it really easy for people to build on top of FUB. But I also think that has led to, a lot of teams having to invent their own solutions. And I think what we're trying to do now is say like, here's like our way or our recommended way, and like you don't have to invent all this stuff yourself. You still can if you want to, and you want to go custom and do all this stuff. There'll still be they'll still be supported. But I just wanted to be a bit more like, oh, cool, like you're going from 10 agents to 50 or 100 agents, and maybe you've got a lead partner like Zillow or not. And it's like, here's our roadmap to do that. And then maybe here's like the third party solutions we recommend. But where possible, we also want to make it like very like kind of like an easy button in FUB, if I can describe it that way, because you know, again, small business owners, real estate team leaders, busy. Like they don't have time to mess around necessarily with technology. I know some of us like it, right? But most of us just kind of want to get the solution in place and then go back to growing our business and recruiting agents, serving consumers, all those good things, and not playing around with the CRM, all the time.
Do you think that was the reason for the growth that you had over over that period of time. I think it was like the late, what was it, 2018-ish. You guys started growing a lot more and a lot faster. What was the reason for that growth, do you think?
Yeah, I think it was the alternatives in the industry were really more, the all-in-one model where you are getting a website and a CRM and everything. And I think as it's kind of in line with a little bit what I was saying is like as these teams grew, I think they really did need more integration and like an open API, etc. They didn't just want to be in this box where it's kind of like, well, here's what we provide, and then if your business is outgrowing that, you're kind of out of luck.
You're stuck.
Um, yeah, so I think it was that additional flexibility. I mean, I think other things that we've done well, and we continue to do well is like the community education, great customer support. Because even if you do have this amazing product, like people are always going to need to call in or email in, and get support. So I think that's also been, a great part of our culture, just being like very customer centric. Like, and I think that's I don't know,
Yeah.
like it's again, I'm sure other companies do it to varying levels, but I think it's like you've got to look at like what's the customer's problem, and like even if we have to get on the phone with you for 2 hours to solve it, like it's important to us that you get set up and you get solved, and we have a success team that onboards obviously all the teams. Like that's a critical part of what we're doing as well, because yeah, if you don't get onboarded correctly and your data moved and agents trained, you're not going to get the results that you wanted from this sort of investment in tech.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's a combo of all those things, but at the sort of center, I think is like we're trying to solve this problem for our customer, and like until it's solved, like whether that's and it is just a combo of tech and people and support and education, I think.
You keep on going back to solve this problem for the customer. I think we can learn from that too. If we're very focused as teams, agents, brokerages in solving this specific, whatever it is, but I'm saying this specific problem, it serves almost like the purpose. It's like now you're purpose driven and you're like, guys, we've got to keep solving this. And like you said at the beginning, dude, this is an ever evolving thing. You're never going to solve the problem ever. Right? Because
Right.
now you have AI. Wait. We want to be more authentic. We want to be more sincere. But now we don't just want to text. We want to do other things. We want to record the calls like you guys are now recording them with AI and everything. It's like, okay,
Yep.
got it. Summarize it. It's never going to end. And I love that you said, well, what's that problem we're continually trying to solve and getting closer and closer?
Yeah,
I
like
like,
maybe if you had like 100% market share, again, like this is why it's like an exciting industry, real estate, right? Because I think everyone is trying to like increase their sales numbers and get better all the time. So it is just sort of like continuous improvement. Like how can you go out and help more consumers? So yeah, it's
I
exciting.
like that. So then let's go into challenges with growth. You guys did grow a lot, but you also had challenges. What were the biggest challenges in these growth cycles that you had?
A friend asked me that actually last night. I don't I kind of think like I adopted pretty early on in sort of the journey of just like there's going to be 10,000 problems, in business. And yeah, you just got to like get on with it. Like you just got to solve one problem at a time. I think we were kind of lucky in some ways of like we grew over the 13 years. And we never had really had any big challenge where like, oh, like growth is going down so much that like we need to lay a bunch of people off or something like that. Like I never really had that challenge as a CEO.
Well,
Yeah.
Dan, you were always lean though, man. I think that's like a big secret too, that you don't talk about it, but Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, and all the greatest leaders, they're like, we've got to be very frugal, right? And you guys functioned with a lean team, so you never had to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were profitable for, basically the whole time. And that I think that also solves a lot of problems, So, of course, there's a lot of startups which are running more at break even or also just burning money if they've got investors. We did go more of the self-funded, bootstrapped, like profitable approach. And I think that does insulate you from a lot of problems because, even if you grow a little bit less this month, it's not like you're struggling to pay bills and things. And that's a good point because I think that probably did contribute to some of the calmness. And yeah, again, like there was definitely challenges. I mean, even like, today I'm still trying to develop as a leader of like, a company of 100, about 150 people now, like, and we've gotten bigger and it's like, oh, I've never done that before. So now I need to learn how to manage, this group of managers that, they probably also have managers underneath them. So it's a different skill set. Yeah, that's very different from like, the startup days. And yeah, you get to also see that at a little bit of a bigger company like Zillow and get a bit of an inside look. Oh, this is how they do it. Like that's how, they have thousands of employees that are like aligned in the right direction. Um, yeah, so it's definitely been a an interesting journey. I really wish there was. I'm trying to think if there really is something that I've just mentally blocked out, like something had happened, and I'm just like, oh, it's just too painful. I can't
No,
remember it.
and
But
I think
yeah.
we talked on and off for like the your a good portion of your journey. And every time we talked, you were we would just talk about, like you said, there were 10,000 problems, but I think you did such a great job focusing on the problem at hand that was more seen like a challenge and saying, hey, you know what? Let's fix this. This is good. Let's get to that next stage. And now that we've got that, we can go to the next one. So how did you decide what to focus on? Was it what the consumer was saying, hey, this is broken, this is what we need, or was it something else?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of your job as the entrepreneur, to really work that out, right? And I think one way I've heard it put is like, you have all these different spinning plates, and like one of them might be like your sales department, one might be marketing, one might be product, one might be customer service. And when one plate's getting a little wobbly and maybe at risk of falling over, that's when you go and pay attention. Like, oh wow, like we really have a lot of things going on in our support department. Like, let's dig into that. Like, do we have the
Mm,
right people? Do we have the right bug reporting process? Like, is product and engineering fixing enough of the bugs? Um, and it's sort of like I drive my leadership team crazy because like I'm always like, oh, we can always improve everything, and I do fundamentally be always believe that like everything can always be improved, even if it's already great, it can still get better. But yeah, I think that's a little bit of your job is like you're trying to pay attention to those things and work out which one is the most important to pay attention to now because you can't pay attention to all of them. You can't try and do everything at once. And then as you obviously have managers and leaders, you start to also learn like, oh, great, like Jennifer's our head of support and she's got that ball, like I don't really even need to go and check in with Jennifer that often because I just know she's got the ball, she's scoring points. If there's challenges in the team or bugs and things, she's going to like make sure that they're surfaced and get to the right people. And so that's also some of it. I think the more you can just find these great people to own these different areas, yeah, they can actually do a better job than you, not just because they can focus on it full time, but also because they're actually better at that thing than you are. So that
mm.
also just lets you scale, right?
Yeah, that's very true. You hire the right people, put them in the right place. It allows you to do the things that you love doing, that you're great at, that you can then scale. Dan, what would be like your specialty, man? What did you focus on when it came to growing followers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit being a bit of an all-rounder, like it's sort of and I think it's a little bit of your job to see that bigger picture. Sometimes, like I would say, it probably has been a challenge as we grow. Sometimes then people can start to think too much about their area or get too like, oh, well, we've always done it this way. Like we need to keep doing it that way. That's where I think it's a bit of like the job of, the entrepreneur or CEO to say like, well, like let's think about like what we're really trying to accomplish for our customer and for the business. And then like this thing we're doing, like, I don't know, it's keeping us busy, but like, is this really like accomplishing the thing? Um,
Mm,
yeah. And besides engineering, like that's something which I definitely did not contribute like any code to the product. I've been involved in all the different functions, early days doing a lot of the support and marketing and sales. But again, over time, you find great people and yeah, they come in. So yeah, there's not much I haven't done. Like when you first signed up, Tristan, I was probably your support person, salesperson, and
What's up, Dan? I remember
yeah,
it was you because I had your name on it.
yeah,
That's very
and even today, I would say like that's a great way to get close to your customers, and maybe that's a takeaway some team leaders can take is like because you've got these agents that are out there actually serving, the consumers, but like, how can you still be involved? Whether that's maybe even just to check in after the transaction, like, hey, how did everything go? Like, any feedback for us? Anything we could do better next time? Like, just sort of. Um, you don't want to get in your team's way, but you also want to be hearing what people are saying because that's your brand and your company, and you're in a kind of a unique place to influence it.
Oh, I love that, man. That is very true. It looks like you went back and you kept the vision in place and you're like, hey, are we still solving this problem, guys? Right? You kept on going back to that. And I like that. I think that's part of the process in leading as well. So I like that. Dude, that's all I had for you. So this is episode, by the way, this is episode 100 that we've done. So you're number 100. We thought that was kind of cool, so we brought you in. And if you have any questions for Dan, he's usually inside the Facebook group. So if you're not inside of the Follow Up Boss community, jump in there. You can always ask. We'll tag him. You don't get tagged very much, so we'll tag him. He can
Yeah,
come through.
throw some tags on. I've been on Facebook a little bit less this year just because just being busy, but I would like to get into the community more. I think we're going to try and post a fair few things there next week because we've got,
Oh,
Unlock and, we're going to be talking about a lot of FUB stuff. So, yeah, I mean, again, we love feedback, things we can be doing better, ways we can improve the product. Yeah, just a continual journey. And thanks for doing 100 episodes. Like, I mean, I remember, yeah, it seems like yesterday almost we started this series, and yeah, here we are, 100 episodes later. I know it's been pretty popular with the community, and again, I think this is part of like what we need to do to help people be successful, like interview people in the industry, learn from them, and yeah, I think it's been good.
yeah, man. I like it. Well, thanks for doing this, buddy. Appreciate you.
Cool. Thanks, Tristan. See ya.
Thanks, everybody.